Hello everyone. Today I'm kind of like going to debunk this here LB-125 Ranger by the Colonial International Knife Corporation. This particular model is the later model. It's was brought out around 1977, somewhere in there. This is an original here. When they first came out, they advertised them with Delrin scales, and this is an older Delrin, which is basically a molded plastic. And the bolsters, they advertise them as nickel. Not nickel, pardon me. They advertise them as nickel silver bolsters. Yeah. In fact, they're anything but nickel silver bolsters. These knives could be had for $25 brand new, and today I think you can even buy them. But they're made overseas for around that same price point, $25 bucks. As you can see, it's basically a spin-off of the 1964-65 Buck 110. Okay, basically the same size, a few differences obviously. This is one that I custom modified, an older model, I think. This one here is a 80s model here, but it's one of my Buck 110 mods with maple, tiger maple scales I put on it, and the carving on the spine. But anyways, now this is called the Ranger LB-125, made in America, and they offered them for 25 bucks all the way through until they discontinued making them, if they did, in America. But I think that you could still get one now, new, made overseas. They have an international corporation that makes them both in America, not this specific model, but other knives made in America at the low end cost. So I want to kind of debunk everything they said about the knife, and then yet show you how the knife is actually built. Now, economically wise, these knives were built to cut costs, obviously. And this thing was like new when I took it apart. I have it apart now, and I want to make it into a higher quality knife. I'm going to custom mod it like I did this 112, 110, and like I did this slim, Buck 112 slim. Now, you say, what's going on here? We got the Ranger LB-125, and you got the, the Buck 112 Ranger Pro. Did they copy the name? Well, no. There's a history actually behind the Buck 112 Ranger Slim, or Ranger Pro, whatever model you get. It was actually named after a naval ship in the Navy. The Buck knife is. I'll tell you this short story, and then we'll get into debunking this and telling more about it. But there was a fight that broke out on the USS Ranger and US Navy. I want to say it was probably in the 60s. I can't remember the exact date. Late 60s, early 70s. It was around the period, and I don't know why I don't have a Ranger Pro yet by Buck. We got lots of 110s, lots of 112s, but a fight broke out on the Ranger, USS Ranger and US Navy. And in that fight, the Buck 110 was pulled out, and it did some serious damage to some sailors, and they basically outlawed the blade's knife length. So Buck went ahead, heard the story with the Buck 110 that created all that havoc and whatnot, and that they no longer bought them, the Navy, because they were beyond their new law of blade size. So they came out with the new blade size, which would be on a slim, which is basically like a Buck 112 slim, Buck 112 Ranger Pro. So it's shorter. And that name, the Ranger Pro, came from the USS Ranger. So the sailors were able to carry this knife legally on the boat that it was named after. So anyways, that's the history of the Buck 112 Slim Ranger Pro, or the Buck 112 Ranger. It was created because of the fight and the havoc that the Buck 110 created. So anyways, back to this knife here. Providence Company, USA. This is an original from the 70s. This is actually the Longhorn version. It's got a set of Longhorns on here, and I'll show you in a second when I take it apart. But they advertised them with brass liners, with nickel silver bolsters, and if you had one of these and you had it over the years, you'll see that the surface would start bubbling or peeling off, actually. So basically that's, I knew of that, so I wanted to confirm it, take this whole knife apart and see what's up with this knife. The quality ain't great, and I'll show you the pieces as I go here, but you can tell by looking right here that this is a nickel silver plating, because usually nickel silver, in order to be a plating, has to have other alloys in it, and it's got copper, nickel, and silver together. That's what makes a plating. But the bolsters themselves are low carbon steel. Okay. In fact, everything on this is low carbon except for the blade. The blade's actually stainless, but it's 440A, which is the cheapest of the three stainlesses. The 440C being the most expensive and the better, the most chromium, making it stainless than the 440A. This is a 440A blade. That's what they use on these knives. Like I said, cut and cost. And all stainless has got some carbon in it. It would be tough. It would chip and break if it was just all stainless steel. Even some of your stainless steel pins that you use has a carbon element in it. And, there's somewhat carbon and brass too. This is a brass pin here that I use. And it's slightly sticking to that magnet. And by the way, brass, as it ages, gets older, it gets harder. I've pinged pins out of older brass pins like this, and I actually had to anneal it, turn it green, soften the brass back up so it could be pounded really good to pin properly and seat properly in the bolsters. Anyways, here I got this one apart, and again, it's I just got it temporarily all pinned up. I'll take these pins out so you can see it. But this is a plastic molded scale with the saw cut. It's a Delrin plastic, which is the beginning of the Delrin plastics, which is just basically a cheap plastic, inexpensive saw cut scales. They used all brass pins on this particular knife, and most of them they did. But that was the only thing brass in the whole knife. These liners ain't brass, and you'll see in a second. But I'll go ahead and take this back section off here. You can see it's hollow in here. Okay. These rear bolster spacers that you'll see in a second are held on with pins on the inside. You can see, boom, boom. These two here, where I got the brass now, them were actually like riveted on. They sandwich this thing together and has inner rivets. Same with the blade up here. There's a inner rivet of stainless steel. It was hard for me to even drill on it. Underneath this, and what they do is they just sandwich it together on a blade, and they put these caps on it. But these caps are a low carbon steel. You know, I mean, they're solid, they're heavy, as you can see. It's got that nickel silver finish on it, so it's not really catching as much as when I show you that one. Okay, so I'll take this top off here. I'm going to redo this knife, by the way, so I left the front bolsters in place, took the back ones off. It's going to have a solid scale on it when I get it done. So like I said here now, take this stainless steel pin I got out here. Again, stainless steel pin. This is pins I use for knives. It's magnetic. It's got like 5% carbon in it. Okay, this liner here should be brass, but it's not. It's just a brass coated liner. It's actually low carbon steel. You can see on here on this bolster, low carbon steel. You got the copper, low carbon, the copper, and the nickel. Here's the nickel right there. Hold on a second. Right there. There's your nickel plating. This is your carbon. This is your copper. So I'm yet to grind it off, and you'll see I ground most of it off on the other one. Okay. And this is how this knife is put together. You got inner, like I said, you can't pound these pins out or drill them out because they're rivets in the inside. I drilled this out after I took the scale off. Okay, from here. And like I said, it was kind of a bitch, but I lined them up and got it good. It's ready to go when I get it finished. Getting ready to get it finished. But here's how she works, just like a buck 110. But the buck 110 doesn't have stacked washers in the back, and they have a straight pin instead of the one with the bend. You know, I probably got this thing upside down. And it'll be a lot tighter when everything's in place properly. But again, all their pins were brass. That's inexpensive. Okay, and here you got a series of stacked washers. There's 2 stacked washers in between the liners. And you got this pin, which should be stainless, but it's not. I mean, it doesn't get any more high carbon than that. You know what I mean? Versus a pin that's stainless with only 5% carbon in it. This one, definitely high carbon. It's got to have some toughness or it'd break. Okay, so that's the only thing that's high carbon. The rest of the steel is just low carbon steel. Cutting costs, you know, that's why they sold these for 25 bucks. And then as far as this goes, this rocker lock, it's 100% high carbon. It's not stainless steel. And to tell you the truth, even on a buck 110, it's high carbon. All right, the steel, high carbon. This is actually like 110s and 112s. They won't with the 420 high carbon steel, which has got like 10 or 11% chromium in it, which makes it somewhat stainless steel, but not as much as their original 440C, which was 14.5 in chromium, making it much higher in stainless steel than the high carbon. But because it's high carbon, it's easier to sharpen and it's tougher. You know what I mean? That's why they went to it, because the buck knives owners were complaining that it was a bitch to sharpen the 440C. They didn't want to go with a 440B or 440A, so they came up with the 428C. And that's what this blade is. That's what the new ones are. This is an original buck from the 70s. Again, 440. I would almost say this is HC. I gotta check the date on it. It might be an 85. I think an 89 and up. Anyways, you know, and they can use their locker. You only need the blade to be the quality steel that you're going for. It actually makes the knife. When it comes to rocker bars. Tighten down on this, when you pin this together, you know, if the blade was thinner, the blade would be too hard to close. Okay, now you make the rocker easier to open and close by having a blade thicker than the rocker. Okay, that's how they're all made. So if you put a caliper on all your rockers, rocker lock, or you know, anything from a traditional knife, you'll always find that these rockers are thinner by 2 to 3 thousandths than the blade itself. See, because if you tighten down on that blade, this can be loose. That's okay. But the rule of thumb is this can't be the blade can't be tight. And if the blade is tight, you can just rock it back and forth until it's loose enough to work the blade, you know. But the rule of thumb is the blade's always thicker than a rocker bar. Alright, so now back to this knife here. Again, it looks like pot metal, but it's not. I ground it down. And then I'll show you this. I'll take the knife out, all the pins out. I got this rear bolster off too. Okay, and this is how this is put together. Series of holes, and it's just like pressed. You know, they bevel this side of the holes, and when the machine presses down on it, on these specific areas, it expands the metal enough, just like you're painting it with a hammer, to keep it on the bolster. So anyways, that's what them are made out of. Now if you look at this, I got this sanded down. That's a low carbon steel. There's no more copper on it, and that's what I want. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stone wash these. I'm going to dip them in ferric chloric acid and do an acid stonewash etching on them when I'm done. And I wanted to get rid of all this shit that's going to peel up in it eventually anyways. Now when I sanded this down, look at this. I didn't sand it completely down, but this ain't brass. This is all metal plate with a brass coating. You can see it here, see? I ate through it a little bit. You won't see that when I put the knife back together. But there it is. Low carbon steel with a brass coating. You know, so that was a lie. Nickel silver bolsters, that was a lie. You know, and if you look at this really well, you can see it kind of pitting from underneath. You know, that's actually the moisture working up the metals between each other. Eventually it happens. And then two, another reason you can tell this is a low carbon steel is look at these. See that rust? Even the pin. Where did I see it? The lights ain't messing with me. Right here. Starting to rust right there. So very low budget. That's why they were $25 knives. You know. And when I put this back together, I'm not going to stack these washers. I'm going to put an actual high carbon steel spacer in it. I'll get them exactly like that, thick enough to where I want it. It's going to be a cool knife when I get it done. But I just wanted to debunk this knife and show you what's up. You know, you can see all the beveled riveted holes for the rivets. They're beveled, you know, like they should be, to keep the scale from coming off. And if you look at this hole here for the rocker bar, Buck actually bevels this side, and it's not actually used when it's beveled, but they have a custom shop to where they put solid scales on too, and to hide that pin under the scale, that has to be beveled so that when they peen it down, it expands and it doesn't come out on the rocker bar. You'll see that when you take a Buck 110 or 112 apart. You'll see these, and they're solid brass from Buck. You know, made in USA. I mean, hey, $25 for this knife. I still think they sold it to like 2008, 2018 maybe even, for $25. Made in America. Here's a Buck 112 Slim, you know, that I modified. I took the plastic off and made some nice cherry wood. I didn't want to grind the knife on this. This is going to be my user. I made it reversible, ambidextrous, just like they did. I put my logo on it here. Kodiak edge, bear claw, and I got 3 bear claws going down it. It looks really sharp when it's oiled up. I mean, you can see kind of like it's got spalting throughout it. If you think that's cracks, it's not, it's a spalting. I put brass pins in it everywhere. I put a nickel silver pin in for the blade. Well, she works nice. She's a beaut. I love it. This is my 3rd one I've done of this knife. I've done several Buck 110s. My spalted maple here. I didn't touch this pin at all. All they did was change the scales of the carbon spine. But it needs to get polished up some more. I'll do that later. And that's an older knife. Look at the blade. It's kind of whittled away. You know, the tick is looking pretty new still. But again, let me get my caliper and I'll show you what I mean about these blades. Okay, I got one here from a mod I did. Another mod I did. This is being sold. This is for sale right now on eBay if you want to buy it. for $250. This one's going up on eBay for $275. Both with spalted birch, or birch burl, I'm sorry, which is getting rarer and rarer in Finland. So, okay, now we checked these blades out, thickness. Here's an original Buck 112 slim. Okay. This is what this knife looked like when I started. I took these orange plastic scales off. Yeah, pretty damn close to identical. You know, and now, again, this is a $29 knife. This is a $25 knife, you know. This has got high carbon steel. It's 428C, so it's got a high carbon in it. So, yeah, magnetic. It's got like 10.5 to 11% chromium in it, which makes it somewhat resistant. Stainless. I mean, you have to have minimum, I think, 10.2% chromium to make a blade stainless. Any lower than that, it's going to rust. And even these, you know, 420s will rust too with time. Just how well you take care of the knife. But, all right, now here's an original that I didn't touch. Let me get my caliper out here. We'll zero this thing off. And I got it in inches. Nope, inches there, millimeters here. Zero it off. Zero it off. Come on. All right. Now, the blade thickness. 308, 309, 308. Okay, 308. Rocker bar. Rocker lock bar. 285, 286, 287, 287, 289. I'm probably moving a little bit. Here, I'll get a couple spots. 284, 285. 308. Within 10 thousandths of an inch. Bigger, the blade. Okay? This one would be the same. Here's the Buck 110, or 110, yeah, I'm sorry. The blade. Let's zero this in. .313. The rocker bar. What's going on here? I must have sanded that. 302, 303, 301. See, it's within 3 thousandths. Yeah, see that the blade's always thicker than the. Don't call them a spine because it's not a spine. The spine's on a fixed blade. The rocker bar, the rocker lock. Here's a Schrade. I didn't sand this one down. This is factory. Let me zero it in. .316. I'm sorry. Yeah, the rocker bars are always 304, 305. See, it's 10 thousandths. 1 thousandths thinner. Go back to this again, where I was confusing myself. Blade's always thicker. 309, 311, 299, 302. So I'm holding it tight. 303, 294, 295. 5 thousandths difference. See, rocker bar or rocker lock is always thinner than the blade. Because if it was the other way around, you pound this, pound this together, pin down the thing here, and this was, it could be so tight you wouldn't even be able to move this. So the rule of thumb is to have the blade thicker than a rocker bar or rocker lock, and then you could rack them to get that play you want to where everything works, the blade works perfectly. If you had it the other way around, if this was thicker, you'd have a loose blade, see? No matter how much you penis, this will still be loose. You know,